What's happening, guys? Jeff Robbins here. Welcome back. So I've got a KA here on the bench in for a new top end, and I don't believe I've ever shown you how I adjust my ring gap if I ever need to. So depending on your bore size and the piston you order, however much clearance you got built in, you may or may not need to adjust the ring gap. So sometimes they fit right out of the box, but sometimes you need to adjust them. So I'm going to show you how I adjust mine if I need to. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay guys, so the first thing you're going to want to do obviously is measure your ring gap. So I've got a freshly honed cylinder and I've got my new piston here. So I'm just going to measure the gap on the ring right out of the box. And to do that, I just put the ring in. And I like to align it the same way it's going to be once it's in there with the piston. So the ring gap's up here on the front corner. Then you can just slide the ring down about, I don't know, 5 millimeters or so with the piston. Slide it down in there a little bit. And then just go ahead and get your feeler gauges. And I think the recommended ring gap is 15 hundredths through 40 hundredths of a millimeter. So I've just got all my feeler gauges here, and I just start with the smallest one and work my way up. And to measure it, all you're going to do is just push your feeler gauge through the gap in the ring until you find one that doesn't go through anymore. See, that one goes through, but it's pretty tight, so that's probably about good right there. So I'm not going to need to adjust this ring. This ring actually fits pretty well. I like to see my rings come in between 25 hundredths and 35 hundredths. If I'm somewhere in that range, I'm happy. So obviously if it's smaller than that, you're going to need to file down the ring to open up that gap a little bit. And obviously if it's bigger than that, your only option is going to be is to order a new ring, the larger size of ring. And God, there's probably, I don't know, about 20 piston sizes you can order, but there's only about half as many rings. So kind of just depending on where you're at in that range, your gap might be a little smaller than it needs to be, or it might be a little bigger. And if it's a little bigger, unfortunately, you just got to get a new ring, get the bigger size ring, and then you may need to file down the bigger ring once you get it. So that's how you measure the ring gap. Pretty simple right there. So if my ring gap's too small, I've got this little ring gap grinder, and I just picked this thing up online. It's pretty cheap. You can use a file. I'm not gonna lie, I have done that in the past. You know, as you just get a file and try to file that down as evenly as you possibly can to open that ring gap up. But this tool makes it a lot easier. So you know, let me readjust the camera real quick. Alright guys, so if I've got a ring and the gap's a little too small, all I'll do is throw it on this little ring grinder I have here, and I'll use it to file down the edges and open up that gap just a little bit. So you have to be real careful when you use these. If you go too much, you're just going to blow that gap out too far, and then you're going to be stuck needing a new ring. So this thing, you know what, this thing does have a handle. This thing did come with a handle, but I just use it by hand. I just turn this by hand, and what I'll do is I'll just slide the ring in there, and I'll just hold the one side up against the grinder, and then I'll just spin it just a few times. Just like that, and I'll do it on both sides. Then I'll back it up a little bit just to knock off any burr that might be there. And that's going to open up that gap for you. And just, you know, just do it a little bit and measure, do a little bit more, measure, because you don't want to go too much and get stuck having to buy a new ring. Yeah, this cheap little grinder puts a pretty nice little edge on there, and it doesn't usually leave any burrs. I've never really had any issues with burrs, but that's all I'll do to open up that gap, guys, is I'll just drop it in here, Spin this a few times on each side. Pull it out, measure it, see where I'm at, and if I need to grind it more, I'll grind it more. But pretty simple on how I open up the gap on my rings to get those adjusted. Alright guys, so there's one last check that you can do on your ring real quick before you get everything put back together. And all you're going to do is put the ring back into the cylinder and get your piston and push it down in there about 5 millimeters or so, just like when we measured the gap. And this is going to be a light test. So all you'll do is get a flashlight and you're going to shine it up the bore. And what you're looking for is you're looking for any light that's leaking out between the ring and the cylinder wall. So just go around with the flashlight and confirm that there's no light leaking out. Just like that. And if there is, you're either going to need to probably re-hone your cylinder or maybe try getting a new ring. But you're not going to want to see any light leaking out from behind the ring, in between the ring and the cylinder wall. So just a quick, simple light check that you can do just to kind of confirm your work and make sure that that ring's going to seat up nice against the cylinder walls once you get this thing broken in. Alright guys, so I think that's it for ring gap. Pretty simple process. Definitely an important measurement so that you don't have any type of engine failures, piston seizing and stuff like that. So definitely make sure you get your ring gap measured up before you get your engine put back together, and you should be good to go. So as always guys, I definitely appreciate you for tuning in. Plan your race, race your plan. Have a good time at the track.